Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving deep into a courtroom drama that's really had everyone talking.
Definitely.
If you've been following the Diddy trial, you know the atmosphere inside that courtroom has been nothing short of intense.
Yeah, sometimes uncomfortably so, from what observers have said.
Right. So our mission today is to unpack the really intricate dynamics of Jane Doe's recent testimony in the ongoing criminal trial of Sean Diddy Combs.
Hmm.
This deep dive is built from detailed accounts and direct observations straight from the courtroom. It gives us a pretty unique window into this case.
That's right. We're going to try and provide some context for the legal arguments
Yeah.
and also shine a light on the surprising, sometimes, well, frankly bizarre courtroom observations reported by people who were there.
Yeah, hopefully giving you a true sense of the unseen layers of this testimony.
Exactly.
So let's start with Jane Doe herself. Given, the setup of this whole courtroom drama, what aspect of Jane Doe's backstory do you think is most critical for listeners to grasp, like right from the start?
Well, I think the key thing about Jane Doe is her timing. She's significant because she was one of Diddy's latest girlfriends, dating him right up until his arrest in September 2024.
Right.
So that makes her testimony feel particularly fresh and relevant compared to maybe earlier witnesses whose relationships ended years ago.
And she was right there for some really pivotal moments, wasn't she?
She was.
She was actually in Diddy's bed when that CNN video of him assaulting Cassie dropped back in May 2024.
Yeah, apparently his sons woke them up. She said she felt like she wanted to throw up watching it for the first time.
Wow. And just before his arrest in New York City in September 2024, she was literally about to fly there from LA to meet him.
So her perspective is incredibly current.
Absolutely. So how did they meet?
They met in late 2020. It was on a girls' trip in Miami, which Combs actually paid for.
Okay.
Her friend was dating him at the time, apparently.
Yeah.
They exchanged numbers and started calling each other Ernie and Bert.
Early and Bert. That's quite something, isn't it?
It is.
And their first actual date in January 2021, it lasted 5 days in a hotel room.
5 days. Yeah. Jane described feeling head over heels, though some observers have called it love bombing.
Right. And she had some initial hesitations, didn't she? Like she'd previously dated someone close to Diddy.
Yeah, that's right. And she's a single mom, and her child's father wasn't friendly with Combs.
But Diddy just dismissed all that.
Apparently so.
Right.
Just missed all those concerns.
Okay.
And the relationship escalated pretty quickly from there. In February 2021, they went to Turks and Caicos. Jane recalls 10 intimate encounters during that trip.
And that's where a really crucial incident happened.
Yes, this is where Diddy offered her a pill. She took it, and later she actually convulsed on the beach.
Oh, my God.
Combs' chief of staff, KK, helped her recover. After that incident, Diddy apparently decreased the dosage, but Jane said her highs would still last up to 12 hours.
12 hours. Wow. Okay, and this next detail, this really seems to complicate things, doesn't it? The fantasy conversation?
Yeah, that started a few months later, mid-2021. Jane became visibly emotional on the stand, describing how Diddy initiated role play about other men.
Right. Asking questions like, do you like what you see there? Can you imagine that? Pretend that that's here and I'm that person?
Exactly. And then came the first fantasy-made reality incident.
Okay.
Jane was high. She'd been awake for 24 hours, and she agreed. Diddy immediately called assistants to set up a hotel room.
Right away.
Right away. Jane described feeling really anxious in the hotel room, dressed in lingerie and stripper heels, still high.
And Diddy just watched.
He watched and self-pleasured while she was intimate with an entertainer named Dawn. She said she just wanted to speed things up.
And how did she say she felt after that?
Well, this is complex. She said she felt exhilarated, but it's also like a Pandora's box had opened.
Exhilarated. But Pandora's box, that phrase is so powerful.
It really is.
How does that feeling, that mix of, exhilaration and dread, how does that set the stage for what comes next?
Well, it sort of creates a psychological trap, doesn't it? That initial exhilaration can act like a hook, maybe masking the deeper sense of dread or loss of control. It sort of normalized these activities right from the beginning, which probably made it harder for Jane to recognize or resist the escalating demands later on, even as they became more distressing for her.
So these hotel nights became a regular thing.
A constant, yeah. Jane described being in lingerie and stripper heels for 12 to 24 hours at a time, high on drugs, rubbing baby oil on herself and Diddy.
And he had very specific requests, too, right? Like about her appearance.
Extremely specific. Straight hair, a ponytail for intimacy, light-colored nails, and, nipple piercing.
Nipple piercings.
Yeah, which KK, the chief of staff, allegedly helped set up. Jane later removed them because of an infection, and apparently that upset Diddy.
And the physical toll on her? Weekly UTIs, constant soreness.
Yes, but she never told Diddy about it. Said she wanted to avoid negativity.
Wow. And she tried to signal she was tired.
She did. She tried saying she was hungry, or lying down, making faces, but she said they were just ignored.
And Diddy would say, what? You're not getting tired on me.
Something like that. You're not getting tired on me, are you? Let's finish strong. That's what she testified he'd say.
Just pushes right through it. There was that example of the New York City trip, too.
Right. He promised a romantic getaway, but then on the plane, he asked if she wanted entertainment.
And she cried, said it felt like a balloon popped.
Yes. But despite her protests, a hotel night still happened.
It's just hard to hear these details without feeling the profound emotional toll this must have taken.
Absolutely. And then there was that striking moment after one hotel night failed because she refused an entertainer.
Yeah.
She felt she had to make it up to Diddy. So she messaged another entertainer herself, Cabaret, explaining she wanted to make Diddy the happiest.
So even after refusing, she felt compelled to arrange it herself later.
Exactly, which speaks volumes about the dynamic.
Then, in 2022, she started researching to try and understand the relationship.
Yes, and that's when she discovered the term cuck.
Okay.
She defined it on the stand as a man in a relationship who's turned on by watching his woman with another man.
Right.
And she also added that she learned cucks could also have a by curiosity, that they're too ashamed to experience themselves.
And how did the courtroom react to that?
Apparently it was noticeable. Observers reported dots connecting and whispers speculating about Diddy's potential sexuality or maybe a desire for degradation.
So the defense of bringing this up, asking her about the term cuck, what's the strategy there?
Well, it seems like a calculated attempt by Diddy's own lawyer, Tenny Garagos, to reframe these potentially coercive acts.
Reframing them how?
As consensual, maybe just unconventional sexual dynamics. Almost like saying he's not a monster trafficking someone, he's just a cuck.
Huh.
It really challenges the jury, doesn't it? To consider that fine line between personal kinks and actual criminal behavior, especially with such a huge power imbalance. It's a crucial pivot in their defense strategy.
That is a provocative defense. But framing it that way, couldn't that also risk alienating some jurors? Maybe making Diddy seem even more manipulative instead of less?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely high risk, high reward. It all hinges on whether the jury buys the narrative that these were mutual, if unusual, preferences.
Right.
Or if the power dynamics in Jane's own expressed distress, like in her notes, make it clearly coercive.
Okay, so let's talk about the filming. These hotel nights were often filmed.
Yes. Diddy apparently claimed it was just for them to look back on. Screenshots were even shown to the jurors.
And they had movie nights, watching porn or their own recordings.
That's what she testified. And even more, when Diddy was away with other women, he'd text Jane asking for videos of her with other men to get excited intimately, as she put it.
And does she always comply?
She said she refused once, and his response was just dismissive.
How did she react to him being with other women while demanding this from her?
She was particularly upset. She mentioned a podcast where Diddy bragged about 48 hours of intimacy with another woman, allegedly young Miami.
Okay.
After he had told Jane he was asleep during that trip.
So deception on top of everything else.
It really highlights that pattern of deception and emotional manipulation within the relationship.
So as Jane Doe is laying bare all these incredibly personal, often disturbing details, the courtroom itself becomes this stage for a sort of parallel drama. What were the most striking observations from inside the room while she testified?
Well, Diddy's behavior was certainly getting a lot of attention. He was seen reading a book called The Magic of Believing in court, apparently replacing the Bible he'd had earlier.
The magic of believing. Any notable quotes?
Yeah, observers caught things like, what you exhibit outwardly, you are inwardly, which, led to questions about whether he was genuinely reading or just putting on a kind of intellectual defend ploy.
Interesting. And the scary Santa Claus look.
Ah, yes. Apparently intensely pinching his chin hairs while Jane testified. It was quite a visual.
And his behavior was kind of contradictory.
Very. One minute he'd be like scooting his chair back to get a better view of Jane or tapping his lawyer, Mark Agnaflo, to move so he could see.
Okay.
Yet at other times, he just seems bored or almost desensitized to it all.
And what about his interactions with the judge?
Yeah, reportedly quite defiant. walking out mid-sentence while the judge was giving instructions, not even acknowledging him.
Really?
But then apparently super attentive with the jurors. A real contrast.
What about the lawyers? The defense team sounds like quite a cast of characters.
Oh, absolutely. Mark Agnaflow, for instance, was seen drinking water under Diddy's intense stare. There were comments about his new haircut, apparently done by his wife, seeking compliments.
Okay.
And he had this sort of smooth, almost clueless way of addressing the judge, especially about Diddy nodding off or something, and often seemed to get away with it.
And then Tenny Garagos, Diddy's own counsel.
Right. Surprisingly, the one asking Jane about the term cuck, which we already discussed.
Yeah.
A very specific strategic choice there.
What about the others? Brian Steele and Nicole Westmoreland.
Yeah, Nicole West Money, as she got nicknamed. They seemed almost relaxed, even giddy sometimes, maybe looking forward to going home. Brian Steele apparently had a huge font on his phone.
Ha, dad vibes.
Totally. He was also described as sort of unconsensually taking the villain role sometimes in his approach.
Interesting phrasing. And Alexander Shapiro?
She seemed stressed, often scowling, gave off a tough love vibe, especially towards Jason Driscoll, another attorney. She was also the one handing out tissues because apparently everyone was getting sick.
Ah, yes, the sickness. Tell us about Jason Driscoll Raspberry.
The young dark horse attorney, apparently recently brought into Diddy's inner circle, getting more passionate dap-ups from Diddy than others.
Okay.
He even gave Diddy a serious wink once when a judge sided with them, but also had an awkward start introducing himself to the court reporter. And observers noted Diddy's critical gaze when any attorney seemed to lose a point.
And the sickness really spread.
Oh yeah, everyone, including Diddy. The sketch artist's coughs were described as juicy, causing the Combs family members present, Janice, Justin, Christian, Quincy, to do this synchronized lean back like a roller coaster. Jurors started masking up too. Diddy himself showed signs, rubbing his eyes, chewing cough drops, looking congested.
Quite the scene. What about the prosecution side, Maureen Comey?
Described mostly as poker-faced, but also empathetic. Her tone reportedly shifted significantly sharp when shutting down defense objections, but then very soft when speaking directly with Jane.
Trying to build rapport?
Seems like it. Avoiding overly legalistic questioning, aiming for a more natural dialogue, letting Jane tell her story.
And Jane's emotional state during this?
Very emotional. Sobbing, making what observers called animalistic noises when trying to speak through tears.
How did others react to that?
Jurors often looked away, seemed uncomfortable. But Diddy reportedly craned his neck to watch her cry.
Wow. Okay, shifting focus slightly, there was also testimony about a specific hotel, the Le Meritage.
Yes, Frederick Zamore, the general manager of the Beverly Hills Hotel, was subpoenaed. Hotel notes about Diddy's profile were revealed.
What did they say?
Things like he uses excessive candle wax and oil, requires deep cleaning after stays, and an extra $11,000 was authorized just for potential damages.
Specific details.
And his thermostat preference, always set to 75 degrees.
Interesting. And Jane testified about an event there.
Yes, a sobriety party. She said she was sober, but Diddy was using drugs. This party then turned into another one of those hotel nights with multiple entertainers.
Okay.
Jane eventually threw up. And Diddy's response, according to her testimony, was, "That's good. Then you'll feel better now that you've thrown up. Let's go, because the third guy is here."
Oh, my goodness.
She said she hated it so much and felt disgusted.
That detail is just chilling, and it brings us back to the core legal arguments, doesn't it?
Exactly. The prosecution's case hinges on sex trafficking through force, fraud, and coercion.
While the defense counters that all the women involved were consenting adults.
Right. And it's important for listeners to understand what fraud and coercion mean in this legal context. It's not always physical.
Right. Fraud can be about deception, false promises.
And coercion can be psychological pressure, leveraging vulnerabilities like financial dependence, addiction, emotional manipulation, things that compel someone to act against their real will, even without physical force.
And this is where Jane's Notes app becomes so crucial, right?
Absolutely critical. It was admitted as evidence specifically to show her state of mind at the time and to support the prosecution's argument about coercion. She wrote things there she felt she couldn't say to Diddy directly.
Can you share some excerpts?
Sure. In November 2022, she wrote, "I've just been waiting for you to do all the things you promised me, and nothing you hurt my feelings every time you dismiss me. I don't want to do drugs for days and days and have you use me to fulfill your freaky wild desires in hotel rooms."
Powerful. And there were others.
Yes. December 2022. "I am done being used by you. You are hurtful and damaging for me. You want me to call you for what So you can convince me to come over around you and what put you to bed and give you foot rubs because you were fed up from partying with whoever the night before?
It sounds like clear pushback, frustration.
Definitely. Then February 2023, you lied straight to my face.
Mhm.
All you wanted was another hotel night and used me before your trip. I've deprived myself of romance, love travel, deep, meaningful connections, and sitting back patiently watching you do all the things I wish you would do for me.
And even closer to the lawsuit, September 2023.
Right, just 2 months before Cassie's lawsuit dropped, she wrote, "As much as I want to see you, I don't want to come there and be treated like a hoe in a hotel room for the millionth time."
Reading those notes, connecting them to the broader picture, it really challenges the stereotype of sex trafficking, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It shows how it can involve this intense psychological manipulation, this romancing that turns sour, leading to addiction, degradation, maybe even blackmail.
Yeah.
It makes escape incredibly difficult, even if there aren't, literal physical chains.
And the money aspect played a role in court, too.
Yes, that definitely raised eyebrows. The testimony covered Diddy providing Jane $10,000 cash after that Turks trip,
Okay.
$6,000 for moving expenses, $20,000 for furniture, and then $10,000 a month for rent.
And how did Diddy react when this was discussed?
Observers noted he gave confident glances towards the jurors during the money discussions.
It's important to have perspective on that money, though. For Diddy, reportedly worth around $740 million.
Yeah.
That $10,000 a month is what? The equivalent of an average American spending maybe $2.61?
Something like that. It's a huge amount to most people, but relatively insignificant for someone with his wealth.
And how did the jury seem to react to the money talk?
It varied, apparently. Some jurors seemed a bit unsympathetic towards Jane's financial needs or her being upset about missing out on vacations, maybe seeing it as materialistic.
Which brings us to another complex point, the OnlyFans revelation.
Right. Jane testified she'd wanted to start an OnlyFans account early in the relationship, but Diddy was hesitant at first. She mentioned a model friend who apparently made $4 million from it.
So she eventually joined?
Yes, in January 2024. She said it was for independence. Her content involved lingerie, swimwear, implied nudity, but she specified no other people were involved.
And the reaction to that in court?
The gallery apparently scoffed. Diddy looked up. Jurors reportedly whipped their heads around.
It really highlights the whole perfect victim fallacy, doesn't it?
Exactly. Jane pursuing financial independence, even through means some might judge, doesn't automatically negate the possibility she was coerced in other aspects of the relationship.
Right. It shows victims often make complex, sometimes seemingly contradictory choices just trying to survive or regain some sense of agency.
Precisely. And that complexity, those contradictory feelings, were driven home even more by another piece of evidence.
What was that?
An audio clip played in court. It captured Diddy smooching Jane. You could hear her uncontrollable giggling.
Okay.
Diddy saying, "I love this right here," and Jane saying she saves him from a dark hole.
Wow. How did that land?
It reportedly left the courtroom quite confused. Was she coerced, or was she still, on some level, deeply in love or enmeshed with him? It muddied the waters.
And finally, let's talk about the relationship after his arrest. That adds even more layers.
It does. After Jane's home was raided as part of the investigation, she called Diddy's security. She then met with Diddy's lawyers, Mark Agnaflow and Tenny Garagos.
And crucially, Diddy is still supporting her financially.
Yes, he has paid for her lawyers, and he is still paying her $10,000 a month rent, even now after his arrest.
That's significant. What did she say about her feelings towards him now?
When asked directly how she feels about Diddy today, she said, "I just pray for his continued healing, and I pray for peace for him."
And the very end of her testimony, the hugs.
Yeah, that was quite something. After a week on the stand and during all that, Jane hugged both the prosecutor, Maureen Comey, and one of the defense attorneys, Tenny Garagos.
Wow. What do you even make of that?
It just underscores the incredibly complex emotional ties, the confusion, the trauma bonding, perhaps, that can exist in situations like this. It's not black and white.
So we've really peeled back the layers here on Jane Doe's testimony. It reveals such a complex interplay of power, alleged coercion, and these deeply disturbing personal dynamics.
All set against the backdrop of this really high-stakes trial.
You've heard Jane Doe's deeply personal account, and you can see how it really challenges our preconceived notions, what a victim looks like or what consent truly means in the shadow of immense power and wealth.
Absolutely.
So as this trial draws closer to a verdict, maybe the thought to leave you with is this. How do these individual experiences, even the ones that seem contradictory or confusing, how do they all contribute to the larger, often really uncomfortable truth of a situation?